is now 6:30, and this is the opening of the regularly scheduled meeting for Norton Conservation Commission. Today is Monday, July 8th, in 2024, and we are obligated to begin with the reading of the preamble concerning that this is a Zoom meeting, and so Dan, why don't you go ahead with that?
Okay. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29th, 2023 bill extending several COVID-era policies and programs by allowing virtual meetings to continue from March 31st, 2023 to March 31st, 2025, this meeting of the Norton Conservation Commission will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found at the end of this agenda. Members of the public attending this public hearing / meeting virtually will be allowed to make comments if they wish to do so during the portion of the hearing designated for public comment by raising their hand virtually or pressing *9 if participating by phone. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Norton Cable website, www.nortonmediacenter.org, an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting.
Thank you, Dan. So participating tonight, members, I'm Julian Kadish, Chair. Our Vice Chair is not able to attend tonight. We also have Dan Pearson, I guess Secretary, not Treasurer, yes, and Mark Fernandez, Tom Vest, and Joseph Carvalho. So on our agenda is our new public hearing, file number 250-1159, 11 Oak Street, notice of intent concerning constructing a detached garage within 100 feet of bordering vegetated wetlands, and there apparently has been some additional work that was done in the past. So do we have a representative of the applicant? And I'm presuming you can share your screen as well.
Good evening, Craig Siganowski of Rim Engineering. 61 Oak Street. I think you mentioned 11. Can you hear me?
You're a little bit faint, so you might have to get closer to the microphone, but also expand your plan a bit.
Sure. I'll speak a little louder, pretty close to the microphone now.
Yep, that sounds good.
Okay, so 61 Oak Street, the house was built in 1965, but the current owner moved in 2019. Excuse me, we have pretty much surrounded by bordering vegetation, bordering vegetated wetlands. Across the street, we flagged up an area to the north end of the property. We have an intermittent stream that comes across the road, and we continue that flagging along the rear of the property. So 3 sides, we have bordering vegetated wetlands and an intermittent stream involved. And what we have here is an existing house, paved driveway here. And this area here is an existing gravel parking area with a pathway that leads to an existing small garage here. What the owner is looking to do is replace that small garage with a slightly larger garage, 24 by 26, 17 feet from the house. And then we would also expand pave the gravel parking area to match the pavement on the driveway and access the garage. and as well leave access to the smaller garage behind. So on the roof, roof water we're putting into a dry well for the new garage. And when we filed it, John noted that had been some previous work in the past that wasn't documented. This above ground pool and the patio that surrounds with the hot tub was added since under the new owner's construction. He did apply for the pool permit, but didn't realize he needed a conservation permit at the same time. So we are calling for sediment controls to be placed along the edge of the driveway, around the dry well, and connected up to the existing garage. And then conservation signs to be placed along, placing them at the 25-foot buffer zone, seeing as there has already been work. This is a tree line with lawn to it, and it allows them to have access to behind the sheds. So if you have any questions or comments, I'd be glad to see if we can answer them.
So it looks like in the area of the work, the grades are fairly shallow and they get a little steeper as you get into the tree line.
Right, correct. It drops off right behind the sheds.
Anyone on the commission have any questions, or John, I don't know if you want to add anything to this.
I've got one thing to add, and that's, Craig, what's the plan for where the fenced-in area to the, I guess, the left or southwest of the proposed garage? What's the plan for that? Because that right now is a stockpile area with a fenced-in, kind of looks like a storage area.
Right, that's to be cleaned up, and partially why the garage is being built
Okay.
to store that. So yeah,
So
this
that
is
area,
the fence area that runs here. These little square areas. So where it says lawn, it's really, that's where storage is being done right now.
so that's going to be an area that's going to be basically revegetated.
Yeah, that's what it needs to be done, and we'll allow it to go back to nature.
I mean, I'm asking if that's the intent, because right now it says lawn, so I presume that you're going to revegetate it with lawn surface, right? Because it's not lawn right now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's lawn. I mean, obviously it's covered in whatever's out there, but
Right.
it would need to be lawn in the end.
Okay. Well, it will be restored because it's in part of the buffer, so you'll restore it back to lawn.
Right.
All right. Any further questions from commission members?
Just a practical question. So obviously the main part of the project is for the proposed garage, and it's noted that I think just the pool was done at some point in time without having been permitted. Like I said, it's a two-part question then. Was there any other work that was done, and is that then being wrapped into this notice of intent?
Yeah, so that storage yard I was just talking about, which is southwest, it actually runs to the property line where that shed is, and that fence line actually encases the whole storage area. So that's what I was asking about that area, because it's within our jurisdiction, that it be restored. The areas that obviously are not being proposed for development for this part of the project. And then secondly, I recommended that they put in some visual buffers, because I know that it's a steep drop off in the back, but there was some observed storage materials that were near that area too. So that's going to get cleaned up too.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I would imagine the applicant seeks to bring this site into compliance for the future as well. So just want to be clear that we're permitting the past work as part of this order conditions as well.
That's correct.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, John Thomas, and maybe this is, we can table it if it's not relevant to this, but, my question was, is there anything when you pull a pool permit that triggers, as homeowner to know that they may also need a conservation permit?
Typically, that's how it's handled. I can't speak to past, I guess, individuals that used to work for the town. this was my predecessor and the predecessor of the building department. So they, I guess, didn't see eye to eye with a lot of projects in the past, and these sort of instances occurred. So
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and John, in that regard, I'm assuming that there's kind of a list of potential permits you may need whenever anybody comes in. Is that,
yeah, just so that way the commission and the public are aware. I mean, the building commissioner and myself and others in the director positions all work in collaboration. So we all work together to know exactly what triggers what. And we have a system in place where a small project like this, where it was a pool permit or if somebody's building a patio, it comes across my desk and I just sign off on it if there's no need for them to come in front of us with a permit.
yeah, I mean, technically, any town official interacting with the public is supposed to be helpful and give the public a heads up to be sure that the public doesn't run into trouble later. I mean, ironically, I ran into that with the water line and you know, wasn't informed of a permit I needed and everybody got their hackles up. And it took a little bit to straighten it all out. But, so anyway, it's a different town hall now, I think. Any questions among anyone in the meeting who wants to ask a question or comment on this project?
Julian, I still have a question.
Oh, go ahead, Joe.
Are there any materials to be stockpiled on site while this construction is going on?
Yeah, I believe, well, there's a note on the plan stockpiling along the existing gravel driveway area. If any materials to be left on site during construction, it should have siltation sediment controls placed along the bottom of the pile, and there's a detail on stockpile detail on the plan as well.
All right, can you just show me on the plan, Craig, where that's going to be stored?
Yeah, well, it's right here. This existing, there's a paved driveway, this curved line, and all this is exposed gravel that he uses for parking now. So that can all be used as stockpiling areas.
Thank you.
So, if there are no further questions or comments, it seems we have enough information to consider closing this for consideration of an order of conditions next time. Is that your sense, John?
Yeah, I'd say that's definitely something we can do.
And Craig, I'm assuming you're okay with that, and
Yes.
so we can go ahead and consider a motion to close.
I'll make that motion.
Yeah, so it's motion to close file number 2, the hearing for file number 250-1159, made by Tama and seconded by,
Joe. Second.
I think that was Joe. You got that in there? Okay. So roll call vote beginning with Mark and Joe
Aye.
Aye.
and Tama and Dan.
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye, the motion carries. So Craig, we will be considering an order of conditions next time. If not clear, you'll need to be involved.
Okay, thank you.
Next on the agenda for new hearings is a determination number 114092 East Main Street, a request for determination, and it concerns the installation of a tight tank, but I guess there was a notation of some other work that was done. So do we have and just for orientation, this is the site of what was previously the Midway Garage. So any representative of the applicant?
Yes, good evening, members of the commission. I'm Brad Holmes with Environmental Consulting and Restoration. Along with me this evening is Joe Correnti, property owner at 92 East Main Street. You correctly filed a request for determination of applicability to confirm that the proposed installation of a tight tank doesn't require the filing of a notice of intent. That's what the application has been submitted for. As we discussed at the last meeting, there was activities associated with placement of asphalt millings on the property that we have to address, and we're planning to address that through the enforcement order. So we submitted a memo to you today, to John. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but what we're going to be doing is putting a restoration plan together and getting that submitted to the commission to restore the asphalt milling area to where it previously existed prior to the placement, what existed in 2023. And that's what we talked about at the last meeting, that we would either come back to let the commission know we'd be handling that through a notice of intent with proposed, improvements to keep the area, or come back with a restoration proposal to handle that under the enforcement order.
So Brad, can you just bring up a plan? Do you have?
Sure. Yep,
Because
So-
that'll be helpful for people.
for sure. What we're here for tonight is for the installation of a tight tank. I'm just gonna I have the proposed activities, and that will be addressing the enforcement restoration details through the enforcement plan proposal that we'll be getting back to the commission. But this submittal is for the request for the determination for this tight tank. We're proposing a 3,000 gallon tight tank, double walled, at the back of the existing building. This area is an existing area of gravel and previously disturbed. About 45 feet away from the edge of the bordering vegetated wetland. It's outside the limit of the riverfront area associated with the Rumford River that travels around the site. It's also outside of the FEMA flood zone, which is in the northern portion of the site. We put together a methodology of how that work would be done. We'll come back to the steps. It's fairly process. The tight tank is intended to handle the floor drains from the building, to handle non-hazardous fluids. And the tight tank is, one of the more protective systems, because once it fills, there's an alarm that goes off and has to be pumped. So it's not like there's no discharge to the environment. What we would do is first install erosion control along the limit of work. We prepare the area for the excavation work. The area is currently covered in gravel. Install the 1,500 gallon double wall tight tank. We'd also include the piping with alarm systems. We backfill the area and then cover it with clean gravel as it exists now. And any materials that would need to be stockpiled during construction of this and installation of the tank would be more than 50 feet away and placed on existing gravel or paved areas. We feel that the work associated with the installation of the tight tank is within the buffer zone, although outside the 25-foot area that the commission looks to protect, but already within an open area, disturbed area, doesn't require the filing of a notice of intent. And as I said before, we'll be coming back to the commission with a restoration proposal that I'm working on. That will come to the commission. We're going to get that in so that it will be in place for your next meeting in 2 weeks. With that, I'll bring it back to the commission.
All right, then, so this is really, the determination focuses only on the installation of this tank.
Correct.
And the incidental findings and the remedy for that will be a separate filing.
That's correct.
All right. Any questions from members of the commission?
Did you say that this is an above ground tank?
No, it's below ground.
Below
It's
ground.
excavated and placed into the earth.
John, any comments on this?
No, I think Brad answered all the questions that I had as it pertains to the other item. This is less of an issue than the other one, which is going to be an enforcement order, which the commission needs to vote on tonight. So that's going to be something that we'll have to do after this.
Okay. So, as presented, the determination can be voted on as to whether it's positive or negative, I'm assuming, which will not affect the area of enforcement.
I agree.
So, unless there are further questions or comments, I think we can consider a motion to close the hearing for determination number 1140.
I just had a couple of questions, if you don't mind. The plans I'm looking at don't seem to have the 100-foot buffer zone on them. I see the wetlands flagged, but I believe you had mentioned the limit of work is 45 feet from the wetlands. Is that correct?
No, the limit of the tank is about 45 feet from wetland flag 4. The erosion control is going to kind of hug this area where there's the existing gravel area, wouldn't go into the woods line. So the erosion control is going to be closer than 45 feet. I'd say 15 feet.
Okay.
But the tank itself and the excavation work would be in this vicinity.
Okay, thanks. And that's at least my second question was, I guess maybe I'm having a hard time appreciating the scale here, but can you just maybe say a little bit as to why the limit of work is going so far up north away from the building where the tank is located? I'm just curious as to why that might be.
I think it was drawn just to circle the area that's already in the paved and gravel area. It could certainly be curled. I mean, they want to come in here and be able to work. There's plenty of room in this paved area. If it had to be, it could be tightened up.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any further questions or comments from anyone in the meeting on this project? And if not, we can now consider a motion to close the the hearing for determination 1140.
So moved.
Second,
We have a motion by Dan, seconded by Tama, and roll call vote, starting with Dan and Tama,
Aye.
aye.
and Joe and Mark,
Aye.
Aye.
and I'll throw in an aye. And I guess since we're on this determination, we can consider a quick motion as to whether this is a positive or a negative determination. It kind of sounds like it could be negative to me, assuming the work is carried out according to plan. Anybody want to be daring and offer a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to issue a negative determination for file number 1140.
Second.
So we have a motion by Mark and seconded by Dan that the determination be negative, meaning that there's no requirement for filing a notice of intent, assuming the work is carried out according to plan. So again, roll call vote, starting with Mark and Joe.
Aye.
Aye.
Tama and Dan.
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye, so the motion carries. Brad, I assume, know full well the meaning of the so-called negative,
Yes.
and you're all set to go. Our next item,
Thank you. Have a good night.
you bet. Our next item is a consideration of an amendment to an existing order of conditions concerning file number 250-1138, relating to 14 Guy Street, which I guess is a residence currently under construction that had a modification in it. I don't know if we actually need a representative of the applicant. I think everything was all set, but Mr. Clennert, are you the applicant for this project?
Yeah, I am the applicant's representative, Dan Clennert from Collins Civil Engineering Group. And so I'm here just to answer any questions. I think we went over the plan pretty thoroughly last time, but I can go over it again just to review everybody on what's happening.
Yeah, if you're able to bring up a quick plan and,
Sure.
because as I understand it, the only thing that's really different is, you had, more sedimentation control that you had to install,
Yeah.
for the, installation of a new, driveway access to that, proposed storage shed.
That's correct. Can everybody see the plan?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so this, the red is the new siltation line here. The gray is the old line, so you can see where we're increasing the limit of work. The red, erosion control will be 27 feet now from the wetlands. The existing, porous aggregate path will be 29 feet. And I did a porous, design based on some comments that we had from the last meeting. This will be 3/8 inch to 3/4 inch porous aggregate. There will be no fines in it. It will be washed stone. This allows 40% voids for water infiltration. I am proposing a non-woven filter fabric. This will keep silt out from the stone and maintain the stone structure. I guess there were some requests by Thomas, which was to show the trees that are being removed in this proposal. There were 2 pine trees. We have a pine tree here, and we have another pine tree here, and we had 1 oak tree right here. Those will be the only 3 trees that will be removed for this proposal. And I did get a comment or an email back from the building inspector saying that he had no problem approving the shed and the access drive to Edward Street.
All right, any questions from commission members, or John, do you have anything you want to add?
I have one. I noticed our erosion control detail wasn't updated. The staking.
The erosion control detail straw wattle, 8-inch line.
Correct.
Yeah, the preference is that, the stake doesn't go through the wattle potentially because it disrupts it.
That's correct, and I had that on the other one too, yeah.
And so just kind of either crisscross it. Wattles just kind of sit there. They don't waddle away. But anyway, that's another issue.
That's a minor plan change you can send over.
Okay, I would definitely do that.
So, any further questions from anyone in the meeting? So if not, we can consider a motion to close. So, I mean, this is just modifying an existing order. Do we deal with that next time, John?
What I can do is I can just explain what the amendment entails and issue it, just to kind of include the gravel driveway off of Edward Street, the new proposed 18 by 30 storage shed, and the relocation of the shed.
Okay, so I think you just did that. So now we can consider a motion to close.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion made by Mark, seconded by Tama, to close the hearing for file number 250-1138, request for an amendment to an existing order. Mark and Joe, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye.
And Tama and Dan, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye. So, as far as I'm concerned, we kind of voted on those orders modification, or would you like a separate official motion and vote, John?
Yes, please. Sorry.
All right, so as I understand it, the modification of the existing order will include the change in plan, describing installation of a new porous stone driveway access and placement of a storage building in the rear of the lot, which has been approved by planning board. And it will include modification of the sedimentation controls. Is that a sufficient summary?
So moved.
And Joe, I assume that's an approval to,
So moved.
approve the modification, and do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Dan. So Mark and Joe, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Alma and Dan?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye, so the motion carries to approve the modification of the existing order. Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Thomas, I'll have the changed, erosion control detail plan to you tomorrow morning at some point. Is that, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine, because all I need to do is just get the revision date.
Okay, yeah, so I'll just put on, one revision date and I'll just say revised erosion control detail. That's good.
All right, well, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We now move on to our continued public hearings. Next up is file number 250-1052, Wading River Estates request for an amendment. And just to refresh people's memories, this was a prior project that was more spread out, and the amendment is to approve a plan, or to present a plan of a much more consolidated footprint of the project, and it did include a site walk. And I'm not sure if there was, I guess the outstanding information was final response with regard to stormwater peer review. Is that correct?
Yeah, so my understanding is that Brian Dunn is still awaiting confirmation from planning board and approval for the parking lot expansion. I guess planning board requested some additional parking areas be part of the project, so that's going to have to go through additional peer review. And I haven't received any information from him. I also have not received a request for continuance, but I'm willing to grant him continuance for this amendment request if the commission is willing to do the same.
So our next meeting is the 22nd of July, so we can consider a motion to continue this hearing until then.
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion by Tama and seconded by Joe for continuation of the hearing for the file number 250-1052. Mark and Joe, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Dan and Tama.
Aye.
And I'll throw it an aye. Motion carried. Next up is file number 250-1158, 129 King Philip Road for a notice of intent of construction of a 6x19 addition to a single-family home and a modification of a deck. And do we have a representative?
Yes, my name's Ken Thompson. I'll be representing the project tonight. May I share the screen? We'll pass some changes.
You're all set, Ken.
All right. Last meeting, you asked for us to add the erosion control, and there's a detailed remote shot right here. With the changes, the existing deck is going to stay. They're not going to do any work. So the only work being done is on the proposed addition. We had a conference call with Nick from the building department. He's not going to require us to raise the deck elevation above the floodplain because it's in an existing room. Didn't think it was worth the effort. So that's another change. And then you asked for calculations, and my calculus, maybe can you guys see that? Can I just change that?
We can.
Well, basically, we're decreasing the impact of the floodplain by 4 gallons. So those are the 4 issues that we discussed last meeting.
All right.
Thank you, Ken.
Yes, sir.
Any further questions or comments? So it sounds like we can consider a motion to close this public hearing for a notice of intent filing for consideration of an order of conditions next time.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion by Joe, seconded by Mark. Close the public hearing for file number 250-1158. Mark and Joe, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Alma and Dan.
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye. The motion carries. So we'll be considering an order of conditions next time, but it's not likely you really need to be involved, Ken.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a pleasant evening.
You
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you. We now are up to a request for certificate of compliance for file number 250-1072, 44 Bay Road, described as everything is in order, and our director feels comfortable having the certificate issued.
Yeah, I swung by there again today. Everything looks good.
Looking for a motion to issue a full certificate of compliance, I'm assuming, for file number 250-1072.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Joe, seconded by Mark. Mark and Joe, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Alma and Dan,
Aye.
Aye.
and I'll throw in an aye. The motion carries. We're now up to draft.
Thanks, Bill.
Anybody have anything of note in the minutes?
The only thing I noticed was that the way the formatting worked out, the 14 Guy Street ended up looking like it was comments to the prior review instead of being its own separate review.
Okay, I can adjust that. Sometimes Google Drive makes things look weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually didn't notice that, but all right. Any further questions, comments? If not, we can consider a motion to accept the minutes of June 24th as submitted and commented on.
I will make that motion.
There's another minor point, and that is in section 6, about 2 lines from the bottom of the first bullet with blue writing in it. It says homeless states rather than homes. So you just want to change the M and the L around, because we don't want to make poor Mr. Holmes homeless.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right. So we can consider a motion to accept, the minutes as adjusted.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion made by Thomas, seconded by Dan, Joe and Tama.
Aye.
Aye.
Mark and Dan,
Aye.
Aye.
and I'll throw in an aye. Motion carries. Old business, new business. A little bit of a discussion flying back and forth on email today.
Oh yeah. Tama, do you want to start?
Yeah, I can start. So I received an email, I don't know, maybe a week ago from a gentleman who was very concerned about activity taking place, I think off of Route 140 at that landmark, kind of where like the landmark landscaping company is.
Yeah,
I personally have not been over there for a while, so I don't know, but he was very unhappy about some work that he perceived to be being done illegally, and mentioned in the email to me that he had brought it up to John, but that he wanted he didn't feel like anything was being done, so he wanted to let the commission know. So I forwarded that over to John, and John explained that he had a meeting with the landowners, and also that there's a formal protocol you can follow if you have a concern, where you can file online. And that gentleman apparently has never done that. He did send me a second. I told him to, please come to the meeting if you have concerns, or, bring it up, file it, whatever you need to do. And then he got a little bit more unhappy and disgruntled, and he had several questions that he wanted answered that I did not feel like I had the right knowledge set to be able to answer for him regarding permitting and that kind of stuff. So I had sent that over to John as well. And again, encouraged the gentleman to join us at the meeting, which he was unavailable. So I did say I would, raise it on his behalf, but he was very concerned. I thought that John did a good job of articulating some of the work that you've already been doing with those homeowners, and some of the, or not homeowners, landowners, business owners, and the work that they're doing to mitigate some issues. I don't know, John, if you're able to speak to any of what's going on and clear up any confusion that there may be.
So just for the history of this site, I guess it's been an eyesore for many years. And then Dylan Ribeiro, who owns Ribeiro, the company here in town, he owned the property for a while, and he sold it over to Marcus Dennett, who owns Landmark. And I met with Marcus, and we went over and we talked about some of the work that he was looking to do. And I guess a lot of the area used to be exposed gravel. And what he's planning on doing is actually putting down loam and seed in a lot of the areas, because it's just a mess. And he wants to, deter people from, coming onto his property because they think it's just public property, and it's not. It's private property. So he's trying to spruce it up, make it look nice, so that way it's, people look at it and say, hey, that looks like a nice piece of property. It's not available to the public. It's posted. And I told him he could put up a fence, but he doesn't want to do that. He's also, there's an area that was, previously disturbed historically, that he is putting down mulch in some areas as a temporary stabilization technique. And that compost mulch kind of thing does work. It's a temporary solution, but for right now, he said that he's going to use it as kind of a lay down area, which he's been doing for a very long time, and the people before him have been doing that for a very long time. He told me that he has had numerous discussions with my predecessor about work on the property, and he's never had to file a permit. They've kind of had a mutual kind of understanding of what he can and cannot do. And I told him, let's keep that kind of communication going. And next time, just let me know if you intend to do anything new on the property. And he said that he does. And when he does want to come in front of us, he knows he's going to have to file a permit. So.
Yeah, and it sounds like there were also some elements of conflict of interest it became evident with the person who was complaining about this. But I feel comfortable that this is being handled objectively. There's no need for responding to any of the accusations that this was being ignored. That's my view. And
Yeah, is it, I don't know if
it's
it's,
fair to say.
sorry, my video
Thelma, go
seems
ahead.
to be cutting out. I don't know if it's, he did have 4 questions. I'll just mention them. The first question was, is a permit required for storage of fuel and landscape chemicals, dyed mulch within 100 feet of the water? Will there be a violation issued? Public hearing, is there a public hearing required for such work? Did you bring this up, with John privately or in the course of an official meeting? And, you know, I told him it was an email exchange and now we're having it as a public meeting discussion. And then he was asking about peer review. So I think, John, you've already established the answer to most of those questions. And I think it should be considered resolved, like, you know, as far as the commission would be concerned until something comes before us, right?
Right. And I think the understanding is that if someone is storing hazardous materials on site, they will acknowledge that. And that is part of their, I guess, permit with the town, is if they are doing that as part of their business, they have to have that kind of in their guidelines and their kind of business model. And that goes doesn't really go in front of us. That goes in front of, I guess, the building commissioner and also the health agent.
Okay.
So, I mean, if it is within 100 feet, I mean, I asked him, I said, don't ever do anything within 100 feet without me knowing about it. So I think he has an understanding of it. And, you know, we did talk about it. We did, you know, speak on, you know, kind of what he can and cannot do. But as it pertains to a peer review, I don't think a peer review is necessary, because if we peer reviewed every single project here in town where we had a concern or issue, then we probably would be out of money more than we are currently. Secondly, I think, you know, what was the other question again? Sorry.
There was the permit for storage of fuel and landscape
Yep. Yeah.
within 100 feet,
And public hearing, but
violation.
I mean, a public hearing.
This isn't anything new. I mean, this has been a landscape supply for as long as I can remember. I mean,
Right.
I believe I believe that's true. I think the work that he's doing is maybe a little bit new to, again, I haven't been over there in a long time, so I haven't been, noting it, but.
It has water on three sides.
Yeah. See, I cross-referenced all the aerials of kind of limited disturbance, and I noticed no increase in limited disturbance from, you know, before 2014. So, you know, from my perspective is that, you know, if he's been doing that for the last 10 years, then I'm not going to really make a stink about it. Obviously, most of that property was disturbed prior to the Wetlands Protection Act anyway. So a lot of the work is previously disturbed. As long as he's not, you know, I guess, you know, unloading and disposing of, you know, chemicals and fuel, I'd say that that's fine. But 100 feet is 100 feet. You can do anything outside of 100 feet. So.
Yeah, and Dave's concern is that the project is not following the protocols and regulations for the town or the state, which doesn't seem that that's the case.
I mean, all I know is that our jurisdiction ends at 100 feet from a water body or a pond. So
yeah, and he has the option to follow up with an online complaint, right? Like that's a.
Yeah, and that's what I tell everybody, is that if it really is a serious sort of concern, I do ask them to, you know, either post it publicly on our forum.
But John, the bottom line is, you have inspected this site.
Yes.
And you didn't see anything that would raise concerns that any kind of remedial action is required. Is that correct?
No, I mean, typically what I would really have concern was if there was heavy machinery out there actively grading, doing excavation, or if there was potentially any sort of sediment heading into the reservoir. That's where I would have some concerns, or any sort of chemicals or anything going into the reservoir. That's where I would draw the line, and I did not see any of that happening at the property.
Okay. And you know, just with regard to the activities, all the equipment is handled up front close to the road, so having a fuel storage way out in left field seems not really reasonable. You would have it where you're working with your equipment. So, but you know, this site has been used. And you know, I came to town in 1980, and there was, I don't know if it was Chris Baker's Inn or somebody even predating him.
It was Chris Baker's then.
Yeah. So it's been continuously used.
And I will say the shack is still there too. I don't know if anybody's seen it.
Okay. And one of the amusing things that Chris said, and of course, when I arrived in town, the reservoir was really very, very heavily polluted from runoff from Mansfield Sewage Treatment Plant. And he said he would have rolls of sod that he would put along the shore and water it with water from the reservoir, and it would thrive from all of the nutrients in it. But the reservoir is not the same as it used to be, thank God.
And that, sorry, John, just for my own education too, this is, I know it's on the reservoir, but the reservoir is not, this area is not necessarily considered a wetland either, right? So it's not under wetland protection.
It is. So any
Oh,
sort
it
of
is. Okay.
open water has a bank
Mhm.
resource area, and we still have jurisdiction within 100 feet of a bank.
Thank you.
So, new update. We just received, not to, I guess, does anybody want to talk about this anymore? Because I'm going to go on to the next thing.
Well, I would just summarize. It sounds like this is not something that is a one-off. You've been involved with this site for a long time, and will continue to be, and because of, you know, it's a commercial operation adjacent to a water body, so it's not something we're going to turn our back on.
Right, and it's right next to 140. So, so just to kind of keep everybody in the loop, water treatments for the reservoir, for Winnicott Pond, and for Chartley Pond are coming, and the anticipated date for treatment is going to be Tuesday, the 23rd of July. So that's when they're going to apply all the Percellacor chemical treatments. So that's just a little bit over 2 weeks out. I was notified before the 4th, so they are moving towards getting all the postage and getting all the state permits associated with that. It is up on our website as of right now under our waters and water bodies posting. I will make sure that the town publicizes it and it's in the paper and all the notices are put out and I can look and see them. So just wanted to give everybody a heads up that that's starting up.
And we have a bullet next to commission bylaw discussion. But I have to admit, I printed it, did not have an opportunity to read it. So I don't know if you want to give us a
Dan, you want to give an update? Paxton's not here tonight.
No, I'm here.
I know you're here. I'm saying Paxton's not here tonight, so.
Oh, Paxton's not here tonight.
Yeah.
Well, yes, I printed out too. I have the 6-page version here, even though it's 11 pages. But this 8-point font. But I don't have. I think it's very well put together. There are some things and very well organized, but there are some things that could be tightened up, which I should have done already, but I will do in the next 2 days. You know, things, grammatical things, ideas, things like that. But I wonder if this won't I wonder if this won't prove intimidating for the general public. I mean, if they come along and say, you know, if we offer them this, which of course we should, I mean, we should offer them something they're going to vote on, will they be intimidated by the length of, I mean, obviously you need definitions, so you need space for the definitions. I don't know. Maybe I should.
I mean,
maybe I should
typically
just-
what you would do is some kind of like an executive summary or an abstract or something like that, right? To summarize it.
Sound an abstract might be a good thing. I will for my tardiness here. I'll be happy to take a crack at it within the next 2 days. Do we want to get together?
Dan, you froze. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a sign, Dan.
Well,
It may be like one of those Star Wars movies. All of a sudden,
well, since Dan is frozen, it looks like he has cold feet. I'll try to reconnect.
Can you hear me
with you.
now?
Yes.
I can hear you now.
Are you holding up the phone like from that commercial, or can you hear me now?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
No, I'm. So you can hear me. Yeah, it wasn't important anyway. Whatever I was saying, I'm sure.
So,
You know, I'm going to say you bring up a key point, and that is it's a 10-page thing that I thought I was going to have time to read before the meeting, but didn't get to. And what's going on in people's minds is going to be, why do we need this? We already have the Wetland Protection Act. And unless we can sell it, you know, some key information, I don't think it's gonna float. I just, you know, this has always been the issue. Is
I mean, what I'm
people
what
are
I'm picturing is you can. Nobody likes. Well, I won't say nobody likes, but people don't like to be restrained in any way. And we know that this is important, and anyone who reads all 11 pages will know it's important. But somebody can come along at a town meeting and just say, look at all these rules. You don't want to be tied down by all these new rules.
Yeah, and my response to that is that when you look at what the purpose, the reason the Wetland Protection Act came into existence, it was because of abuses by particularly developers that came in and filled in wetlands that were bad building sites, built things there, and then basically fraudulently sold houses as if they were just fine. But then when it rains, the water still goes to the wetland area and it just bubbles up out of the landfill that they put in. So the point of the Wetland Protection Act was to protect the investment of the homeowner. And if you can make the case that this bylaw will also enhance the protection of the value of the homeowner's investment, then I think you have a chance of getting people to understand that that's why those regulations are there. And my statement to anybody that says, oh, we have too many regulations, yeah, you were not around before the regulations were put in place to witness the deep abuses that led to the political tidal wave to create those regulations. And you know, that's the only reason these regulations exist, is because people go out there and say, I'm going to make money. It doesn't matter if I pull the wool over the eyes of an unsuspecting victim.
John, I have a quick question. This maybe, again, maybe it's tangential, but with Norton being part of the aquifer system, are there other protections in place as well that we're, you know, I don't know that we're exactly the wellhead, but I know that we've got lots of that aquifer land under us, at least on my side of town.
Yeah, most of the other towns that are within the Canoe River aquifer have bylaws. So just to keep that in mind.
Have you looked at their bylaws?
Oh yes, a lot of them are very extensive.
Is this more
is-
or less
This
restrictive?
is less restrictive than all the other bylaws.
Okay.
So just so that way we're kind of like seeing how we look at this is that if we're looking at, let's say for reference, that the most craziest bylaw, very restrictive, is a Ferrari. This is a 1985 Toyota. That's what this is. So
it wouldn't pose a particularly dramatic impact to existing homeowners?
well, since this town is one of the most wet towns in the area, it would. And
Okay.
that's where it's kind of interesting that, you know, being a very wet town, we don't have a bylaw, where
Yeah.
other towns that are a lot drier do have a very restrictive bylaw, which is, it fascinates me that it's kind of
Yeah.
opposite roles here. So, you know, the fact that, you know, neighbors and residents here, you know, would like to expand their properties and do that, that's fine. They can do that because we don't have a bylaw. If we did have a bylaw, that would put more restrictions, and we could tailor this to new development versus existing development. So that's kind of
Trying to enforce it retroactively would be a real beast for me.
right. And
I'm not to say I'm in favor of as much protection as we can get, but if it makes it more palatable to have it.
right. And I think a lot of folks here that are on the commission are in areas where they are affected by wetlands. So, I mean, everyone here is looking at, you know, this potentially impacting them. You know, and that's the people that are on this board. So if the people that are willing to commit to something like this, then they know that, you know, this is for the best interest of the town. But, you know, I see both sides of it. You know, I'm impartial to whether we have a bylaw or we do have one. You know, it doesn't really affect me entirely. I understand both points of view. So I'm kind of good middle ground when it comes to kind of having this discussion. I can see the benefits and I can see the cons to having a bylaw.
Yeah, well, to some extent, we are victims of our own success as far as regulation to protect and improve quality in the environment. When I first came to Norton in 1980, I had an next door neighbor who worked as an auto mechanic and other jobs for many years, and he related a story that the stream that goes down the center of Mansfield, that when he was working during the 40s and 50s, the businesses used to dump so many organic solvents in that stream that houses that were near the stream, the paint would peel off of them. They couldn't keep them adequately painted. So this is the kind of degradation that erupted, that caused the environmental movement to erupt. And, you know, cities were enmeshed in clouds of smog across this country. Now you can go on a world traveling expedition and see what happens to countries that don't have environmental regulatory management. But things are so much better here that people get used to saying, what's the problem? It's the same issue with vaccines. I don't see anybody getting polio. I don't see any babies becoming, getting measles encephalitis and dying or winding up in an institution all their lives. But these are the things that were happening, and people are just not willing to learn history about how bad things were before these regulatory structures were put in place. But
I mean, I'm gonna say this is that, you know, in light of this understanding, looking and mapping, you know, a lot of the town for the last 3 years, there's not a lot of land left here in town that is potentially developable. A lot of it's going to be redevelopment. So, I mean, the challenge is you know,
I see, yeah.
half this town is under an ACEC, which limits, you know, a large amount of potential development because you can't fill more than 5,000 square feet of resource area. Otherwise, it puts you in a whole new bracket of expensive permitting, or through state processes, everything that you probably don't want to do. Would somebody be willing to pay it? Maybe, depends on what the development's going to be. But no one has done it yet. So, you know, that's where the challenge is for somebody to come in and kind of, I guess, try to, you know, figure out what they can do.
Yeah, no, I guess that's a good point.
And, you know, and we're going to see a lot more redevelopment projects where, you know, property owners that have existing houses are going to get torn down or, you know, have makeovers. You know, it's going to be something of that nature. It's not going to be, I mean, we're basically people are grabbing the crumbs to the cookie. That's what's kind of happening here is, you know, that's what we're dealing with a lot of these projects. Some of them are addition projects, some of them are expansion projects, but nothing of real significance. But, you know, the problem is prices are going up for properties, and you really need to have deep pockets for any sort of project coming in, and it's those people that are coming in to do stuff. And a lot of the other issues that we have currently are, we don't have a really good sewer system here in town, so unfortunately it's not going to do well for commercial enterprises in the long run.
Yeah. There's a lot of problems we can't fix.
Yeah.
I
So,
think. Yeah.
With this bylaw, it's something that has been discussed, but I think, you know, part of me is like, well, it will all work itself out. We don't need it because we can just use the WPA, and just the fact that most of Norton is already wet doesn't really matter. But then the other part of me is where we see these redevelopment projects where people are buying up 2 lots, merging them together, then building up this monstrosity, and that's kind of what we're getting. And, you know, there could be locally regulated resource areas in the property, but we don't have that authority because we only go by what the Act has. So like vernal pools, things of that nature that might not meet some regulations. But like I said, the state's coming out with new regulations for the Wetlands Protection Act. The stormwater Massachusetts Stormwater Handbook's going to get it revised. I think it's like 900 pages. So that's going to have a lot more information. I haven't read all of it or any of it really. I mean, I've just read pieces of it just to kind of see like the abstracts, like we were talking about, to see what major changes were going to happen with a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, I sat through one of those crosswalk things, and it seemed, I mean, obviously it's mostly focused on coastal stuff, but it
Right.
seems like it would be significant for Norton.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a bit of a change. And you know, if we put this bylaw in now, we're probably gonna have to revise it at some point to meet the new state standards. So.
all right, well, I think, you know, we can try to pitch it as this is another tool to help the homeowner protect their investment. If they say no, we'll take the risk, then it's going to be a no. But if they say, well, it's a reasonable consideration and pass it, we can try.
I mean, we can also do a public working session and see if we can get feedback from the community. I can put a survey poll out and all this other stuff too. I just don't know how much of involvement we want to go, because I think, you know, it's better to see what we're up against before we take the leap. And, you know, I'd rather...
But most people do not understand the concept that regulations didn't just grow on trees. They were developed to address a major problem that was affecting a large segment of the population in order to get the political will to do that. And, you know, there has been, in my lifetime, an awful lot of improvement. But I'm old. A lot of people haven't seen how bad it was.
And I have a quick question. On the non-criminal disposition, where did that language come from?
Where's that?
That's down in near the end.
Down near the bottom, it's D. And where it talks about the fines and the violations and offenses.
Oh, that was in there. I don't know. I'd have to go find out where that is. I mean, I would.
It's the last page, but
I read that over and it just seems
it might
like it could be abused with the way that language is, and that's something that would steer me away from this if I was not only myself but the general public.
Is that kind of cookie cutter language though from?
I'm guessing that's from another bylaw that was taken. I don't know which one it's from because a lot of the information wasn't cited. It was just copy and paste, I think.
Because it's just, it's not just, but it's fines, basically is what it is, right?
Correct, but it's the way that.
It's the way it's worded.
It's the way that it's worded and how it can compound just so egregiously, so to speak. If there was someone to be in an abusive power situation.
Yeah, and I think we can, each of us can go through this and look at it from that perspective. The intention is not to rankle people. The intention is to get them to understand that this is part of the government structure that protects their interests.
Well, if it was up to me, I'd strike the language, its agent, because I should not have that power or authority to issue fines. So that is everybody here's authority. I don't have the power and authority to do that. So that would be one thing that I would strike from this if I was going to keep it in there. Would be
Wait, the police officers. Didn't we have an environmental police officer? I mean,
We do not.
we do not.
okay.
The state does.
This has been a discussion for a long time, but as a volunteer commission, we really did not feel comfortable levying fines against neighbors in town.
I think we should bring back the stocks, just for,
Bring back what?
bring back the
He
stocks.
wants punishment in the public square. But
We throw blue-green algae at them or something.
You got to find it first, though, Dan.
be careful what you wish for, Dan, because there are people talking about camps. So
Speaking of violations and enforcement, we still need to vote upon issuing that enforcement to 92 East Main Street. So I need everybody to vote that we can do that. The cordial enforcement order.
Like everyone that's on this call, or including the people that are not. Okay.
So
Do you have sorry if you sent it and I didn't see it, but
I don't have one ready and drafted, but I need everyone to vote on giving me the authority to draft one up and issue it on everyone's behalf.
let me just summarize. We saw that plan tonight that had in the rear of the building both the inner riparian zone and outer riparian zone. And what was not specified is that whole back area that is basically in the outer riparian zone has been filled with millings, asphalt millings. Is that a fair summary?
That sounds good.
That was not permitted, and it's worked within the riverfront with potentially pollution-laden materials that is a violation and needs to be remedied. I mean, the only remedy I see is it's just got to be picked up. Is that your sense?
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what Brad informed us, is that they'd rather go the route for doing the mitigation work through the enforcement order to alleviate the illicit activity. So I just need everyone to kind of vote in favor of issuing an enforcement order to request that mitigation plan and schedule be provided to the commission at the next hearing date, which is July 22nd.
That sounds like it could be a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion by Tama, seconded by Dan, to authorize John Thomas, our director, to issue an enforcement order to encourage a remediation plan. Mark and Dan, how do you vote on that motion?
Aye.
Joe and Tama,
Aye.
and I'll throw in an aye. Does that wrap up our old business, new business?
That should wrap up our old and new business for the meeting tonight. And I will not be at the next meeting for the 22nd. So I will let Megan and Dan Pearson, since he's the clerk, be on the call for the meeting.
All right, and what I recall is we have 2 orders of conditions that we can vote on and leave on your desk, either accepted as draft or modified.
And I will have those ready for you guys to review. And I don't think we received any new projects, so it should be hopefully a quick meeting.
Good.
All right.
Great.
All right. Well, until I guess the 8th. The 8th.
Well, I have listed August 12th.
August 12th. So until
after the 22nd. So you'll be here August 12th.
I should be coming back. I come back from Portugal on the 11th, so I'll be here.
Ooh, have fun.
Should we be wishing you a happy birthday?
You can if you want to. I mean, unless
Happy
you.
birthday.
Thanks, Dan.
Happy birthday.
Thanks. All right, everybody. Enjoy.
All right.
Right.
Thanks.
too.
All right,
Take
take
care.
care.
Bye.
All right.